and I was kind of like long time bike mechanic working at the Cove. And then we had the staff meeting, like, okay, we're planning for spring. It's going to kick into season here. Like, who's staying on? What are we doing? Wade, are you going to be, like, full-time? And I'm like, well, actually, no. And she's like, no? This would probably be, like, 93, 94. And I'm like, no, there's actually Rocky Mountain has made an offer to pay me money to ride a bike.
Hi there, I'm Cam McRae, and you're listening to the NSMB podcast. We have a real treat for you in this episode. I'll be talking to the one and only Godfather of Freeride, Wade Simmons. Back in the year 2000, the first article ever posted on NSMB.com was an interview with Wade. I met him at a cafe on Commercial Drive in Vancouver, and despite not knowing me or NSMB.com, he was gracious and friendly, and we had a great conversation. Fast forward 25 years, and Wade has become a global mountain biking icon. While he was the very first Red Bull Rampage champion, competition has never been his thing. Wade's always been about originality and exploration. His distinctive riding form is incredibly smooth and stylish, and he's inspired mountain bikers around the world. It's fun talking to Wade. He's a deep thinker. He's always got something on his mind, and it's often something controversial. He searches for big picture answers, and he's got lots of opinions. We talked about growing up in Kamloops, racing BMX, career choices, epic rides, e-bikes, and a movie project he's been working on with Derek Westerland. And now, I hope you enjoy my conversation with Wade Simmons.
We got a lot to talk about.
We do have a lot of shit to talk about. Okay.
I want to talk about like the state of freeride right now.
Yeah, that's interesting.
It is very interesting. Give you my perspective on it. Like,
yeah, and Rampage.
I like the Dark Fest. Of course, like what they're doing is, but everyone's doing it. Right?
It's just true.
Like, that's kind of like what's weird is that the Dark Fest is rad. It's so awesome. But how many people go down there and do it? Right? There's like 20 riders, and they're hitting these massive jumps. Right? The jumps are massive, but everyone's hitting the massive jumps. So it's not really that exciting.
Because everyone's doing the same thing. Everyone's can
doing
do it.
The same thing, right? And then, I'm not much of a, I have to, on Instagram, for the whole week of Dark Fest, my Instagram was filled with the same people doing the same jumps.
Yeah, it's true.
Right?
Yeah.
Me, Wade Simmons, one of the pioneers of freeriding, I find that, I don't want to be callous or disingenuous to these guys, but it's kind of like it's a little boring because there's nothing new going on, right? Like they're doing big whips, they're hitting the 90-footer, they're hitting the 110, but 20 people are hitting it. When we were doing stuff, there was no one. We were pioneering for the first time. Like it was like someone had never hit something like that before. So now you get all these guys that are hitting it. It's just like I find like, they're all like high-fiving each other, stroking each other off. It's kind of like you're all doing it. It's just these guys are just like, it's this posse of feeding off each other for what?
Yeah, it's an interesting point.
It becomes normality. There's nothing new being done. If one guy is hitting the biggest jump, then it's like, oh my God, he hit the biggest jump. Or if there's some new lines. The tricks are cool, like Bienvenido, he does a front flip, he does a back flip, right? But it's still on the same jump that everyone else is kind of hitting too. So I don't know. I get lost in my thoughts with that. Like, what am I trying to get at here? Like, what is being lost? But it's just.
Well, it seems to me what you're talking about is the difference between doing something that's an event for. It almost seems like they're doing something for them. Like they're doing it because they enjoy doing it, and it looks super fun.
It's like a session, hanging out.
Exactly. But you come from the generation when you guys were making movies, and your part in the movie had to be completely different. Not only, I guess that's it for GoPro.
Hey, that was good.
Not only did it have to be different than everyone else's segment, it had to be different than anything else in your segment.
Yes.
So you each little part had to be distinct.
Well, we didn't want to repeat other people's stuff, you know?
Whereas these guys are repeating each other.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting
And
at.
themselves.
It's, you know, and not only just them, but collectively, this generation, they're feeding, like, it's kind of like in every aspect of life, you know?
Yeah. It's an interesting distinction to make between the two things. And I can see, as someone who came up being in movies and watching the movies, where you'd see, okay, what's going to happen when this guy goes? When those guys go, you know what's going to happen because they're hitting the same jumps exactly. So it's definitely a different approach to mountain bike media.
Unfortunately, I think I'm just skewed. Like, I want to be, like, I enjoy it. I watch it. I get excited. I'm stoked. I watch, you know, you can see between the different riders who has the style and who's confident, who's not, right? But at the end of the day, I think about, like, what's my takeaway from this, you know? It's like, okay, they're all hitting the same jump and top to bottom lines on the Instagram, and you're like, yeah, I mean.
I guess one of the things we're admiring is their skill.
Yeah, the collective skill of everyone is.
Because what they're doing
incredible.
is obviously unbelievable.
Yeah.
I mean, they're motorcycle-sized jumps on
Oh, it's disgusting.
mountain bikes, you know.
And then seeing, I get excited about the girls doing it because I know that it's more of a pioneering thing for them.
Yep, that's very true.
You know, there's only a handful of them doing it. You know, seeing Vaya go through there and Robin, and you know the other girls that are hitting it all. It's like that's awesome.
The progression in the last few years is unbelievable.
Yeah, so good.
Because it wasn't long ago before there weren't many women who would even whip on a jump.
You know what's funny now too is that you used to when you know not to take anything away, and this could be taken the wrong light, but you could almost notice a girl's riding. You're like, oh, that's a girl. Now I see the style, and I'm like, they're right there. They're like, oh, I mean, male, female, doesn't matter. Seems like the level is right there. It's awesome.
It's amazing to think about what it's going to be like in 10 years when they've come so
I don't
far.
want to make that sound like I'm being bad, like, oh, Simmons, you know, ride like a girl, but it's kind of like I'm actually taking enjoyment in the fact that you can't tell anymore. It's so cool, you know?
Yeah. No, I mean,
Way to go.
we're dinosaurs, and that's probably going to come out a little bit in the podcast.
Well, I always, thinking about that and the whole, like, taking down statues and, of course, all the First Nations and, slavery stuff and, the names of universities being changed, is that those guys lived in a time, like, we're evolved now. We're enlightened. They were living in a time that they only knew that. They didn't have our perspective now back then.
Yeah, there's some amazing things that happened, though. And you think of Thomas Jefferson writing in the Constitution that all men are created equal, and he owned slaves.
He was almost there.
Which part of that sentence did not?
What part of equal do you mean?
Which part of man? Like,
maybe equal had a different definition back then.
Yeah, it's crazy to think of the perspective, and he was obviously one of the better ones.
Well, that's kind of what I'm getting at is in their time, they were probably the good ones. So everyone's like, oh, they were, like this or that, but we didn't live then. It's easy to put our ideals now on them. Looking back, but they say hindsight's 20/20. It's like, yeah, we can see it perfectly from our position now. But living back then, they had a different perspective, and you had to evolve from something.
It's true. Yeah.
Right.
And we're all part of the culture that birthed us. So
I just think, I'm not against, like, people say, oh, but, we got to forget that stuff. But it's almost like you needed to remind us of how bad it once was. Because if you do erase the whole past of bad, then you don't know. You're just like, you just live in this vanilla where there was no good and no bad. Because if we do reach a maximum of good, then you don't know what good is. Because good is just, there's no, to be good, there has to be a bad.
There's no ability to compare.
Yeah. To be wet, you have to have dry. If it's just wet wouldn't exist. That's just normal.
So if it weren't for the bad times, we wouldn't have known where to go.
It's kind of like that saying, a caged bird knows no freedom,
Yeah.
It's like, he's happy. He's a bird living in a cage. Like, what does he know?
It's true. Yeah, that's an interesting thing. I mean, we were talking the other day about not knowing what another life would have been like.
Yeah.
And you only know the life you know. But at the same time, most of us have been through situations like you had probably jobs you didn't like when you were a kid. And
Well, I think you're supposed to.
yeah, for sure.
Because that grows you as a human.
Exactly. Yeah.
Like, I don't know. I look at my kids, and I have an older brother, and he has a son, my nephew, and my brother's quite a lot older than me. He's 6 years older, and my boy's 13 now, and his cousin's 23, so 10 years difference. And I was watching, he was kind of the first generation of like, my dad, I was the baby of three, my brother Ryan, middle, and my older sister Deanna. I had to do chores. Like my dad, he wouldn't bust my balls, but it would be like, I had chores, mow the lawn, do this, do that. And then when my brother had Eric, Eric didn't do much, you know what I mean? Because it's just, we got into the generation of like, we weren't, humanity was evolving. You don't push your kids, like Elliot, my boy, he's 13 now. He doesn't have many chores, and I tell him all the time, I'm like, when I was your age, typical story, right? I did this and I did that. I can't even get him to feed the dog,
I have a similar experience with my kids, for sure.
I'm sure you do. I'm sure it's a collective reality, but it's just, why do things change like that?
Yeah, and it's interesting because I used to think that people who, weren't harder on their kids, or at least firm and disciplined them, that those kids were not going to turn out well. But it turns out they kind of do.
Yeah.
And sometimes kids just grow up with not a lot of boundaries, but a lot of love. They turn out pretty well.
Yeah.
Which makes me think, like, what the hell have I been doing?
All you need is love.
Exactly.
Song, isn't it? All you need is love, love. Lisa, my wife, she is a middle child of three, and her younger brother, two girls, one boy, younger brother, Corey, he's a good guy. He's a lineman, and his dad, Dave, rest in peace, he's passed away now, but we get together at family things, and Corey would always say, Corey's a bit of a, I don't want to say he's a hard ass dad, but he's, like linemen are kind of old school guys, hard worker, right? Piece of hydro lineman. And, like we talked about, like hitting our kids, like this is going back 10 years. I used to maybe cuff Elliot, on the side of the head, like, what are you doing, boy? like hitting his sister or something like that, like a little cuff. And Corey, we used to, and then Lisa's like, don't hit your kids. I'm like, well, I didn't hit them. I mean, there's levels of hitting. It's like a little tap, like, like a dog. You got to like get them out of the situation, And Corey remembers getting hit by Dave, his dad. He's like, and it's funny because he's like, I deserved it. Like now, being a dad himself, he's like, oh yeah, I deserved it. I was a total asshole. And look at him now. He's like turned out good, right? Like he actually respects the fact that his dad took a heavy hand a little bit, because you have to steer the ship a little bit.
Yeah, it's interesting.
But if that happened now, like say you're in Savon and you could like whack your kid for dropping some M&Ms on the ground, it's like
child services.
People be filming you, like
Totally.
like you hit your kid. You're like,
Did you have any corporal punishment in your home when you were a kid?
Yeah, I remember once. Old school. Like, my dad now is 72, so it was a bit different back then. But I dodged a hit at the dinner table, and he knocked over the milk. Like he went to like smack me, like and I was like, whew. He's like, dude, you shouldn't hit the carton of milk.
You won that round.
I won that round. I was like, I'm leaving now. I'll go to my bedroom.
He was even more mad, for sure.
It's kind of like the classics. You see, it's like, this hurts me more than you. And you see, like, you get the belt out.
Do you ever have your mouth washed out with soap?
I did not, and we were talking about the other day with Corey, my brother-in-law, and a friend of his, Mike Lamb. Mike was saying, I got my mouth washed out with soap, and I never had that. My parents are pretty. My mom's like a total sweetheart, rose-colored glasses. Like she would never do that. And I'm being the baby. I basically raised myself.
That's kind of an advantage, I think, being the youngest kid.
You're just like my parents were done. I don't want to say they were done with parenting, but they were pretty much done with fighting against their children, you know.
And they know they kind of turn out all right anyway.
Yeah.
There's only so much you can do to influence that.
I got a very, like my sister is a doctor, family doctor. My brother never went to post-secondary like I did. He married his high school sweetheart and became a farmer. Dairy farming. She was Black Old Dairy Farm in Kamloops. He worked there. And he's a bit of an entrepreneur. Like he used to have a carpet cleaning business, and then he owned a Hasty Market gas station. And then now he used to distribute Breyer's ice cream up in the Kamloops area. Huh. Yeah, so he's kind of total entrepreneurial spirit. And then me, I had intentions to go to university. You know, you're kind of just going through life like, oh, this and that. And I raced BMX, and then my bike skills were pretty good, so that translated into mountain biking. And I kind of had a taste for the outdoors and found myself in this sports stream, you know. I had full intentions to go to university, and I'm sure my mom back then was like pushing me, you know, like I got accepted, I think, to a few universities, like locally, you know. I forget which ones, you know, but definitely I was gonna go. And my mom always tells you that, yeah, you were accepted, and I got good grades. Like I was the kind of guy like grade 10, 11, I would come home with like a D or a C minus in math, and I get yelled at. So next report card, I'd have a B, you know, like an A. Like, okay, I'll do the work. I was very good back then to realize what I needed to do to get through. I can read the situation, and I was always like a look ahead guy. Like, say the teacher would be on chapter 8, whatever, and I'd be in chapter 11 already. I was more like, okay, I get this concept, but where is it going? I was always like, but where is it going? What does it mean? You know, that's how we opened up this conversation about, you know, like what does it mean? Like, what are they doing? Like, they're doing this now, but what's the end game?
Do you remember when did you ever make a decision to not go to university, or did it just happen that you were doing other things, so you never decided?
You know, I never had that decision, like, I'm not going to university, but biking made it, I guess, easy. I don't want to say it was easy, but it presented itself at the right time. And I did remember the conversation I had with Lisa. I forget her last name right now, but she was the book girl for the Cove Bike Shop. Okay. Long time, worked with Chaz. You know, she kind of did like the scheduling and all the accounts payables and stuff. And we had this definitive moment because we were working through winter, you know, and I was kind of like long time bike mechanic working at the Cove. And then we had the staff meeting, like, okay, we're planning for spring. It's going to kick into season here. You know, like, who's staying on? What are we doing? Wait, are you going to be like full time? And I'm like, well, actually, no. And she's like, no? This would probably be like 93, 94. And I'm like, no, there's actually Rocky Mountain has made an offer to pay me money to ride a bike. I remember having that conversation there. And she's like, what? Like what do you don't race? Like, what do you mean they're going to pay you money? It's like, well, at that time, I was downhill racing with Mike Hunter. Mike Hunter was a cross-country guy, and I was downhill. And that summer, we had negotiated with Rocky to pay our gas and accommodation driving the Volkswagen van across Canada following the Canada Cup race circuit. So we had this Volkswagen van that was marketed Rocky Mountain on the side. I was to do downhill racing. Mike was doing cross country, and that was the year of like, no, I'm not working in the bike shop. We're going across Canada and riding mountain bikes.
Right on. Yeah,
and that was kind of the start. That was the first taste of like working, you know, like being a pro rider.
Was that like 99 or something?
No, 94, 93.
Wow, 94, really? So
I first started with Rocky 94, 95.
94, 95. So, and since that time, you've been paid as a rider?
Since that time, I've been making a living, somewhat of a living, being a mountain biker, yeah. Never back to work. Well, that's not true. I actually did work at Rocky as a wheel builder. I worked on the assembly line.
Oh, right on.
When Rocky was in Annacis Island, yeah. So, you know, you just take, you know, the mountain bike season in the summer. In the winter, I would kind of do jobs, you know. I worked at Coast Mountain Sports, you know, like selling ski jackets for one year. My dad worked for Sears. That was his career, working for the retailer Sears. And he got me a couple jobs at different Sears, you know, different locations. And I had this wicked job. I had a 6 till 10 shift at the Capilano Sears. which is funny now because that's the North Shore Bike Park.
Yeah, it's hilarious.
And talking to the North Shore Bike Park guys, I'm like, I used to work here, like unloading containers for the morning. So my the store would say open at 10. I get there at 6. The truck would come in. We'd unload the truck with like whoever bought refrigerators or stoves or whatever was ordered from the warehouse, you know. So we'd unload the truck, put it in there, do customer service.
And it was good hourly?
6 till 10. And I'd get off at 10 and I'd call Ken Mod and we'd go mountain biking or whatever, you know. Just,
right on.
yeah, go filming with Digger.
Well, we've gone all over the place already.
I know, that happens.
And so one of the things I wanted to talk to you about is, there's so many chapters in your life. What do you recall as the most memorable era, or even like if there's specific smaller moments that really are seared into your memory about your career as a mountain biker?
It's hard to just pull out of the files.
Yeah.
I guess, I had a couple pivotal points, definitely. Like, back in the day, I was working, again, as a bike mechanic. And we did, there was a race up Mount Seymour. Remember there was a race at Mount Seymour, a cross-country race?
Hell of the North?
Maybe, yeah, this one was at the top, though. There was like a cross-country race at the top.
Oh, yeah.
I don't even know, I don't remember the name of it, but Bruce Spicer, who is now, somewhat acquaintance friend of mine. I don't see him too much, but I would call him a friend. He said to me, he's like, you should ride mountain bikes. Like, I remember him saying that to me, like he recognized that I had a talent of bike riding, and, these little snippets of memories, like Spicer telling me, like, you should ride mountain bikes. And then Jesse Kiefer, you remember that name? Jesse Kiefer? Another old mountain bike legend.
Cross-country racer, yeah?
Sorry?
Jesse, he was a cross-country racer.
Cross-country racer, yeah. And this is when cross-country and downhill were kind of like, they had them at the same events. The one day would be the cross-country, next would be downhill. And I think he said, yeah, we should race downhill, kind of like, we should go to the downhill rather than cross-country. I don't mind cross-country, but I'm not, I don't ride mountain bikes to get fit. I ride mountain bikes for fun. And fitness comes as a secondary right that. It's kind of like the more I ride, the fitter I get. It's, I don't train to go mountain biking. I mountain bike to train kind of thing, I've always had that mentality.
Just happens.
Just happens, exactly. The more I ride, the fitter you get.
So those guys were saying to you that this is something that you should try and do as a living?
Well...
Or just pursue it?
We didn't know there was no living back then. It was just like, yeah...
because that was so early.
They kind of recognized a bit of talent in me. They're like, yeah, you should pursue that kind of thing, Do some riding, and then get to know Leslie Tomlinson and all the old pros, and we'd go on the Saturday morning rides with them and get fit. And just, it's really a who you know game. As you would, I'm sure, would say too, right? Like, you can go to school, you can do this, but it's kind of like you just get to know the right people and be respectful, of course, and doors open for you. And I've been very fortunate that way. Where I've had the talent, I had the hard work ethic, a good listener, and kind of the right doors open.
Who are some of the people who you looked up to as mountain bikers?
Oh, so many, like all of them. Like I used to work at the Cove, so I would say, talking about history of mountain biking on the shore, people they say, "Oh, Simmons, you were like first wave." It's like, no, I wasn't first wave. Like, I would say I would be second wave for sure, because the Chaz's, all Chaz's old buddies, Stu Boyce, Flex, Doug Horn. I mean, those guys?
Yep.
Yeah, like those guys are legends.
No, of them, yeah.
So when we were growing up as young I came to Vancouver after graduation in 91, and I was 18, so 18, 19. We used to hook up with these OG shore guys, and they would ride our ass off. And they're all hardcore fit dudes, Like, I remember Doug Horn used to wear a singlet. He used to love wearing a singlet. It would be
like he's a track rider.
Yeah, and no, like just like a wife beater.
Oh,
not
okay.
a singlet, like a wife beater. And that would be his jersey. Would be this white wife beater, and it would be sleeting out 3 degrees, February, And he'd be out in this white beater, like up top of Rome, you know, just sweating, dropping us.
So the guys then with kind of the most stature were the guys who could go fast and go for a long time.
Yeah, they were. I mean, that's where mountain bike started. Was the cross country side of it, you know.
And
What's his name? Jojo Buscombe. You know.
I don't know that name actually.
You don't know Jojo?
No,
Come on.
I don't think so.
He was riding. Yeah, he was a pro. You know, with too many names are flooding my head right now.
Yeah. So were some of those guys better on the descents than others? Because there's obviously gnarly descents back then too.
Well, the shore back then was very raw. We were riding cross country trails or hiking trails, so it was junky, gnarly, rooty, chunky. You know, so it was like pin it on the fire road up and survive on the down. You know.
So
And I always maintain a decent level of fitness, you know. But my skill, of course, was on downhill, right? So that's where I shine. Like really come alive on the downhill kind of thing. I would hang on the climb, like be mid pack or whatever, right? Because everyone would wait for each other with a little bit of ribbon as you do, which is another conversation I want to tell you about later.
So and then on the downhill, were there guys who could keep up with you of that crew?
You know, I'm not. I'm a terrible racer.
Or just ride the same kind of lines that you rode?
Yeah. I definitely have this skill set that I could like ride anything, like put weight on it or whatever, right?
Yeah.
Kind of. I've always been. I'm good at lines. I could always like see a line and ride it and put stuff together. Yeah.
When were you first? Because I don't think you were not in Pulp Traction.
No.
So,
but I was working at the Cove when the car rolled in, and Hans Ray and stuff like that. They kind of left the car there.
Huh. So, what was the first movie you were in?
What would be the first movie I was in? That's a good. I don't even know.
I mean, you were in some of Digger's movies, like.
Well, Digger. I guess Digger would have been the first, and then
NSX1,
because Cranked was a couple years before New World. Yeah, probably Digger movies.
NSX1. That's certainly where I first.
Probably Bjorn Enga. Or no, Bjorn, they were there.
Bjorn and Christian.
I don't know. I don't know what the first movie was. There was a lot of movies back then.
Yeah. It could have been NSX1.
Could have been the first movie, probably, yeah.
Yeah. I definitely remember watching that over and over and over and over again.
I've been in a lot of movies.
Yeah.
All the North Shore series, which is 10 of them. New World Disorders. Bunch of Cranks. And then remember Thor Wixom had movies.
Yeah.
Yorley Ricker, of course. Corey LeClaire.
That's right.
Like, I would say I've been probably up to 50, 55 movies.
Wow.
I would say if I put it all together.
Yeah.
Like, absolutely. That's a lot, you know. And then The Collective, and then, you know, the Collective guys movies, a couple movies there.
Yeah. Do you miss that?
I definitely, you know what I love? I love the adventure. I'm an adventure guy. I love the travel. I love going to a new spot. You know, you look at, again, the current stuff happening. You see these guys, going to these places, riding, and who's that guy? I kind of like his stuff. He's a French guy, rides some gnarly stuff. His name's escaping me right now. But he does great stuff. He's like goes to new locations, Like we were the first people to Iceland, or I never made it to Morocco, but like the Crank guys went to Morocco, high Alps, like filming in the Alps for the first time.
Turkey. Yeah.
We were the first people to Cappadocia. You still see it now. Like people go to Cappadocia and they're like, I recognize lines. I'm like, we rode that line. It's. I'm working on a best of. I've been talking to Derek. I want to do a Wade Simmons best of movie.
Oh, that's cool. So from all of the movies you were in?
Well, how deep do you want to go? This is the thing.
But basically, it's not just Derek's movies.
No, I would want to incorporate it all.
That'd be cool.
Because I have a lot of cool moves that they live in those series that people really have not seen. And I want to put all the best of together. I mean, it's a huge project. I've been slowly kind of like going through each movie and writing down the timestamp and where we can find it and what move it is.
That's a cool idea.
It's going to be a very big undertaking, which will dovetail nicely with Godfather's Garage, right? It's kind of like I did some pioneering stuff back then. Like people need to see it.
Yeah.
Not for my reason, just because it's like, because it was, like I remember one of my favorite moves I've ever did was, like a van, like an old school GMC van. I aired and manualed the top of it. I remember I had this vision.
That was probably for Corey, wasn't it?
It was for Corey. Ambrose filmed it. And we went to Kilmer Park. Kilmer Park, where it's got grass and the lower field, and there's that grass, so we parked the van, like totally like put it onto the field, parked the van on, in front of the downhill grass landing, and I had a little porta booter, and I aired up onto the van and then off and onto the grass. Like this is midnight, like late 90s.
Yeah, no one was, who could manual back then?
Yeah, like a big air to manual, like onto the top of a full-size van, and then off the other side. And it was like I had this vision. I wanted to do it. I'm like, I think I can jump onto a van and air off. Like it's pretty cool.
That's very cool.
It's one of my favorite moves that I'm like proud of.
Yeah.
Or the wall ride, Vancouver, the Aquatic Center.
Oh, that's yeah.
Like shit like that.
For sure.
That was buried, but it's kind of like whoa, like
Yeah.
I like that because I've always, if we want to get into this, it's like. I wanted my segment to be better. And some people are like that, like Semenuk, and I'm sure Semenuk in his mind's like, I need to bring something new to the table, which when you're Semenuk, how hard is that? Right?
Yeah.
For me, it was more riding spots. Like I've never been a trickster, like I don't have tricks. I never learned how to flip or whatever, and tricks don't really excite me because I see tricks as like being a flare, it's kind of like a peacock, like, ooh, look at my feathers. Like that's what a trick is, right? Like you have a jump. You have the jump, and the jump lives as the jump. Like, that's the line. And then as you start to do tricks in the jump, that's more the colors you put into it, right? The lipstick, oh, look, I'm going to bar spin it or tail whip it or double backflip. But really, the jump is just still the jump. And that's why going to, like, these contests now, it's like, yeah, they're hitting the same jump. It's kind of like, it's a pissing contest, really. When it comes down to it, you're like, I see your flare and I'm going to up you by doing a double flare. It's like, who really fucking cares?
Game of bike.
I don't care. I totally 100% do not care about that shit. Like, oh, but he triple backflipped. I'm like, yeah, but, I'm more about the line. Like, who's the first person to do that drop, And that's why I love Matt. Like, Matt Hunter is one of my favorite riders ever because.
Me too.
He saw the lines. He's kind of like me. Like, and he would say, like he was like I was one of Matt's back in the day. We're buddies now, but he was like, dude, I looked up to you. I'm like, really? Like, oh, like I love hearing that, right? Because I look up to him now,
Yeah.
Because I see his lines. I'm like, dude, like you did that line, like that's so sick. I'm a line guy. Tricks.
Yeah. Finding what you can do on the line.
Yeah.
Like the ultimate expression of it.
And then you look at other sports, and those are what the pioneers do. They're like the first to climb that or to span that. Everyone else comes in behind and they bring the tricks. They bring the lights and the cameras, like, where, the first guys that do it, they're out, they're in, and then they're out, they're gone. Houdini.
Like a phantom.
But then they get forgotten. I have this line in Squamish on the Malamute rock face. Remy's hit it. They all hit it. I pioneered that line. I went up there with Sterling Lawrence, shot it. This is before digital, like early. Mark Wood. Remember Mark Wood? Mark Wood came up there because we were buddies back then. Like we had shore play, the business and stuff, right? I had him in a harness on a rope on the edge because the line where you come off and it's like there's about a 10-foot ledge in front of in front of the water there.
Okay,
the log sort, and then it's like to certain depth, right? Anyways, I was up there. We were doing a Rocky Mountain photo shoot for cross country bikes or something, and I was looking around in there for lines. And I came across this line. I'm like, holy shit, this is rideable. So I brought Stroll there, and I brought Mark Wood for protection, and I rode that line. And this is, dude, it's a sick line. It still gets hit all the time. Now you see like Johan and Remy, they're airing into it and stuff. And I give them shit. I'm like, that's my line. Like, if you guys are going to take a photo or, and then,
give me credit.
You got to give me credit. Like,
give me some props.
Right.
That doesn't happen.
But they like I'm a friend of Remy's. And They like, even Vanderhook. I hang with Vanderhook. He's like, dude, like, yeah, you're the Godfather. I like hearing that.
Who of like the YouTube generation do you enjoy watching?
I like people who do. I like people who bring something new to the table. That's kind of, I'm having trouble. with that
People
one.
that build their own stuff
Yeah.
and
New spots. Who do I like on the YouTube? Well, I don't watch much YouTube. I'm more Instagram, but
you hate Instagram.
like I never hated Instagram. I hate what Instagram does to people.
Gotcha.
Instagram is Instagram. I used to battle Chris Winter on this, like Instagram, because we'd be on a trip somewhere, he'd be taking shots for the Instagram. I'm like, does it really matter? Like this lives in our heads. It's gonna live there forever. But you're gonna take a photo of it. You're gonna get your likes, your hurrahs, and then you're moving on to the next one.
A little bit of dopamine.
You're almost doing no justice to the location because you're using it. You're milking it. I had all the arguments against Instagram, and I was going to hope it was going to die, but it's not dying.
Not quite. So it's still
Cam,
a little
I'm
bit
eating my own
alive.
words here, because now I started this company, Godfather Garage, and
Now you gotta be on Instagram.
Talking to Keith Stark, he's like, "You need to kick up the Instagram." I'm like, "I know, I got to fire up the Instagram." I do.
Have you started doing that?
Well, I'm working on it, Cam. It's it's a hard learn for an old guy.
Got some clips the other day that Gully used.
Yeah, I'm getting the clips, and I have good friends who are good at it, who are going to kind of help me along the way, But I'm a real deal, like everyone who ever comes on a trip with me, you're like, and this is what I tell Rocky too. It's like when you do a demo, and say you only have 10 people that come to the demo, right? Say you put your money in, you invest in the demo. It's a crappy day, 10 people come out. Or you do another demo, it's a sunny day, you get 100 people. Which demo is better? One would think that the 100 people would be better. On paper, it's like, so many people went out, they rode the bike. Maybe some people didn't get the bike because it was too busy, right? But on that day of 10 people, you get to reach them on a different level.
Yeah, personal attention.
And I always make fun, right? Go for a ride. I'm a bit of a coach. So I teach them through something. Maybe they ride something that they can't ride, or they learn how to manual. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like when I go for a ride with people, I'm always say, "Hey, you should try this, or suggest that, or do this, or do you want to learn how to do that?" Those 10 people become they back you for life.
It's like ambassadors.
Ambassadors, they're like, "Oh my God, I hung with weight. Like it was like I went to the demo. It was a shitty demo, but like it was awesome." Right? So that person leaves, and now whoever he deals with, or girl or guy, whoever that person deals with the rest of their life, they're a fan, right? Those 100 people in the demo, they might go demo another brand that afternoon or that day. It's like, that's what Instagram is like. It's like you scroll through Instagram, you see like how many sick lines are done every day on Instagram. I couldn't tell you, but I see like 100 of those. How long, so that's what I don't like about Instagram. It's not that I don't like Instagram. I don't like the fact that it's like a trough, and the trough is always getting bigger. So the things that are worth substance, they're diminished because everything else is just clouding it. Like that's kind of going back to, a good magazine cover will always be there. Like, holy shit, look at this magazine cover, right? Whereas, the stuff is just like, how much radness is in your phone right now? Like if I had to pull this up and go on Instagram, it's like, you got this sick skier riding the sickest chute, or you got these guys in Japan on the deepest powder, or I'm dirt biking a lot now, so I get all these like rad moto guys that are doing the most epic shit on their motorbikes. Like every day, it's like, oh my God, like there's too much, it's almost like your scope is too wide that you can't focus on anything.
Life's become a video game.
Yeah, it's a video game, and they're all trying to outdo each other and get the likes, and there's no end to it. Is what I'm getting.
No, that's true.
There's not going to be an end. Where's it going to end? Like, I mean,
Well, I mean, are we just going to have seen everything and it'll be too boring?
Well, I kind of think that's what I'm getting at, Cam, is that rad thing, which should have held more weight, doesn't anymore because it's being blurred,
Well, and then with AI, you'll be able to make anything look real.
The deep fake.
You'll be able to it's not even deep fakes anymore. It's like they're you just,
Anyways, I would like, if I could give up my computer and phone right now, I would. Like, honestly, 100%. If someone said, Wade, we'll sponsor you for not having a computer and a phone. And, like, I'm a knock on the door guy. Like, I got good friends. I'm friends with a lot of people, but, like, like, I go to Squamish, I knock on people's door, because that's kind of like, it's like, yeah, I'm not going to be like, I'm not like, I'm like that, Cam. It's like,
Drop in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah. That's, I mean, it's funny. I've noticed something about the younger generation. They, one of the things that we have this summer place at Shoe Swap, which you know about.
Yeah.
The younger generation, they play drinking games, but they don't play drinking games to get really drunk. And I was trying to figure out what it is about them playing video games. And I realized that they can't be on their phones because they'll get stung during the video game. So what they have is a group of people that are totally engaged with each other and paying attention to each other and not off in their phone. And that's what keeps them coming back to do it. They're not trying to get everyone shit-faced. It's funny. Right. The game's fun and funny, but it's not about getting pulverized. It's about having everyone's complete attention.
Right.
And it's really interesting.
You should write a book about that.
Yeah.
A thesis. There you go.
It's
Did they admit that, or was this your conclusion?
Well, when one of them, they haven't said that. When one of them gets on their phone,
they all get on their phone.
No, they get burned, or they're like, everyone, you can't be on your phone. You're not gonna be able to play the game.
But I do notice, to kind of support what you're saying, I've noticed, because I observe my boy or my daughter with their friends. When one person goes on the phone, they all do the checks. And it's kind of like check time. You know what I mean? It's like, oh, we're interacting. All of a sudden, no, phone time. And they all like on their phone, and then and then they'll do their little thing, and it's like, oh, and then all of a sudden they're back engaging with each other.
So I was talking to somebody the other day about the trajectory of riders' careers and how some went into the age of social media and leaned right into it, and worked really hard, and that's how they support continuing to be a pro rider. And your evolution has been a little different, and I wanted you to talk about how your evolution as a rider has led you to where you are now.
In terms of, like,
in terms of where you are now, in terms of your career.
Well, we'll get to the heart of it here. Is that you look at guys my generation, my vintage, like Schley and Tippy. Tippy's doing a really good job. I think, in terms of, like, you look at Tippy and Schley. Tippy is he's got way more followers. I would say he's doing a better job. He's more reach. I don't know about a better job. And then Richie kind of stalled out. You know what I mean? It's kind of like you get stuck in this middle, like this kind of slack tide a little bit, right? And Hans Ray, I think he does. Yeah, I don't want to say anything that's gonna hurt people or anything, but it's like I think when you, like, old guys, it's just not our game. Like, it's hard, like I'm stuck in between. Like, people say to me, like, you'd be huge on Instagram. It's like, yeah, I'm sure I would be, but do I want to be? Like, I don't know why, but for some reason I see it as a sellout a little bit. Like, these new generation that comes up, that's all they know. Right? Like, it's like, yeah, of course you do it. Like, you don't do it. Like, why don't you do it? Right? But for me, who's had their fork into the dense meat, I see it as like fluff. It's almost too fluffy. It's also almost like, I don't want to say I'm too core to be above it, but you're kind of like, I see it as a seller. Like, at this point in my career, to come onto Instagram and, like, hose it all down, I see it as being fake. Even though some people, they might not even see that side of it. Like, what do you mean it's fake? Like, it's like, I know, but, like, for some reason it's like I'm faking it because I'm beyond my prime, obviously, right? So now when I want to grow Instagram, it's like, look at me, I'm big on Instagram. It's like, I had my time, you know what I mean? So to drag that time that I had back into the Instagram light, it just seems like I'm doing things just for just to play the Instagram game.
Just to get attention.
Does it make any sense, Cal?
Yeah.
Like, you know, like...
Well, there's certain people you see on Instagram who are just like, look at me, look at me, look at me. Whether, no matter what they're doing, they just do whatever will get the most attention.
And you have to.
And you have to.
Right? Like, that's, you know... I was kind of thinking about what we're going to talk about and what angle, like if it does go on a certain angle, what I'm going to talk about, right? But I think marketing right now for companies is at an all-time low, right? Like the creativity of companies, it's too easy now. Like I look at these marketers at different, like I'm not going to say any brand specifically because I don't want to get in trouble. But what do? They have these athletes and they lean on the athlete's Instagram, right? Like how creative is that? That is zero creativity. There's zero creativity going on in the map making industry right now. It's just, you know, and then I sit in some marketing meetings like, oh yeah, we're going to do this Instagram takeover or like whatever, right? You're like, that's just like, that's not marketing. That is taking a tool that someone created, like a programmer, and now just applying the, you know what I mean? It's like saying writing a book and Microsoft Word is getting the, you know, it's like Microsoft Word. We're going to publish it on Microsoft Word. You know what I mean? Like, it's, you know, I don't know. It just seems fake to me. Like, there's no creativity anymore. Like, you know, it's just Instagram stories. What's your story? It's like, I don't know. It's just, there's no concrete answer here that I'm trying to get at, but it just seems really weird. Are you feeling me on that?
Well, yeah, I mean, I can certainly see that from where you've come from, there's less substance to Instagram than being in a feature film or having a spread in a magazine that you hold it in your hand. It's tactile. You can put it on your shelf.
Like, I like Bernard Kerr. I like his style. I think he, you know, he has some cool stuff. And I was watching the Tasmania event right now.
Hardline.
The Hardline. And I was watching his track walk and stuff. But poor Bernard, he's got to compete with all the other people doing track walks. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, here's my track walk on Instagram. You know, it's just on Instagram. Like, it's not like, you know, it could be the best thing or the worst thing, but it's just depends on how many followers you have. That's it. It's not whether you do a good job or a bad job. It's more your how many followers you see on the broadcast. That tells you if you do a good job or a bad job.
Yeah.
Right? Like someone could only have like 10 followers and do the best job, but no one's going to know that because he only has 10 followers.
But everyone started out with 10 followers and they got more followers when they did a good job.
Well, is it the good job or is it just something catchy? I talked to Remy about this, you know, and he's like, there's no rhyme or reason. This is what Remy said to me. He's like, there's no rhyme or reason to it. Like he says that some videos that he thinks is going to go viral don't work at all. Like he's still trying to figure it out. And they tell you this, like something catches that they can't put their finger on it yet.
Well, there are two sides of that. There are literally things that are interesting to people, and there are also things that are pushed by YouTube.
Yeah.
And sometimes they align. They don't always align.
And then the sharing too, the reposts, that kind of like.
Well, sharing is merit based though. Mm-hmm. Because sharing isn't YouTube deciding that.
Well, no, but it's shared on if you're sponsored.
Oh, okay.
Talking about like an athlete does a video and then how much reach does Red Bull have? Because Red Bull probably has huge reach.
For sure. So that's not a merit-based share.
So you take a shitty job by a Red Bull athlete and then it's shared by Red Bull. You know, so there's so many different angles that kind of come into play that way.
Definitely, yeah. It seems like it's more of a meritocracy than other situations, though. I mean, in the day, like imagine mountain biking before there was Raceface's UFC. Like it was kind of an impenetrable world. Mm-hmm. It was hard to get in there. Like there's so many good riders. Like would Cam McCall ever have been sponsored?
Yeah,
we don't know. Tyler Clausen, we don't know.
Yeah.
So now you can get a name for yourself based on your output on YouTube and Instagram and TikTok and whatever platform based on your skill as a rider and also who you're associated with in terms of filming and things like that.
I agree with you on the fact that, you know, it's like, what's the talent shows, you know, like
Yeah, America's Got Talent or whatever.
Yeah, it's like it gives. It's not, you're not handheld like, oh, this person's going to be the next star, right? It's kind of, anyone has that opportunity, which is awesome.
Yeah, whereas in the past, it was definitely who you know.
Yeah.
I mean, can you imagine Tyler Clausen having made it then without the UFC? I don't see it.
Yeah, maybe. I mean,
it's possible,
yeah.
but I mean,
he had talent, right? But
yeah, for sure. But a lot of those guys are still around, and the guys who were, 3 or 4 in that competition,
yeah,
most of them aren't.
Yeah.
Yeah, which is kind of interesting. It's reminds me of when we did our apprentice. It's. I guess Pink Bike did their own version of it, but
right.
There's not the same kind of organized talent competition anymore.
Well, yeah, there has. It's always been there. Racing.
Yeah. Well, racing has always been there. Yeah, but in terms
of organized talent competition, when you boil it down.
But that wasn't going to work for you, right?
Not for Freeride, no. Luckily, I had the movies.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's an interesting idea what you bring up, like the movie stream. Because ideally, you want to broadcast it. Like television, you want to get the rights and distribute it. Where these new platforms now are mass distribution, which, it's an interesting world we live in right now.
Yeah. So we went off track about the trajectory of your career.
Yeah.
Because there was a time when you were still just riding bikes for a living and sponsors were paying you a wage, and collectively that's what you lived on. And that has changed over time. Maybe you can talk about that evolution.
Yeah, how did it all happen? I mean, the natural progression, like a good friend of mine, Keith Stark, he started this company called Switchback Sports, and he was an old racer, and he turned into he's basically did sales, and he represented Rocky and Raceface and Fox.
Small distributorship.
Small distributorship here in BC, and he basically needed help, because Rocky's a BC brand, lots of dealers in BC, and we were friends, so we were kind of talking about the possibility, would you ever want to give me help, I come in, well respected, and of course I breathe Rocky Mountain and Raceface and stuff, so it's an easy fit, and like Richie and Hans that are kind of going down the athlete path, I kind of recognize that this is another a good avenue, that to stay in bikes and sell bikes, and ideally I'm a mountain biker to the core. I love selling mountain biking and pushing mountain biking, that's what I tell people, is that I sell mountain biking, like the sport. I love the sport, getting out, riding your bike in the mountains, a single track. Whether they buy Rocky and Raceface, that's a good thing if they do, but I want to raise mountain biking, and these are the brands that I represent, right? So bringing more people into mountain biking, I think, is collectively good, and when they buy, the products that I represent, that's even better, kind of thing, So
you are a sales representative for Rocky Mountain and Raceface?
Yeah.
And other brands?
Fox, Raceface, Marzocchi, which I'm kind of a Marzocchi athlete as well, so I kind of still ride. I still dabble on the athlete side of things for little videos like pick-aparts and, like product videos and things like that, right?
What other sponsorship relationships do you still have?
As a peer sponsorship?
Yeah, like
riding?
Yeah.
Not many. It's like Rocky and Raceface, basically.
Not Shimano anymore?
No Shimano, not really. I mean, I do know the Shimano guys, and I have a good affiliation with them, but I'm not I'm not on the athlete roster.
And is that kind of? I mean, obviously you had a great relationship with Shimano, but is it kind of liberating? And then you can just ride whatever you want?
Well, no, I still ride Shimano. Oh. Yeah. I mean, I used to get I'm kind of in a gray area, because I'm 50 years old, and I am a sponsored athlete by Rocky, and Rocky buys a lot of Shimano. So there is relationship. There is OEM deals and stuff, and I support Shimano. I love Shimano stuff from day one, and I always got sponsorship components or Gruppos, so I still get a couple Gruppos a year to put on bikes and stuff. So yeah, I am sponsored by Shimano, but not paid. Well, I guess that is pay in terms of
but
dollars
no,
and cents,
I mean,
but
that's more of an ambassador role at this
I'm an
point.
ambassador, for sure.
Yeah, which is
you know,
cool.
It's I think you just get tired of asking for stuff, right? You know? Like
Yeah.
I'm not a good reptile. I'm not reptilian in that way. Like I love doing loops. I take different different ways home because I get tired of looking at the same stuff. The same emails every year. Like I hate repetition. I really do. And then these new team, managers that come in, right? They're like,
and you got to start from scratch.
What do you do? It's like, like how many times have I had that speech, right? Like, if you don't know, you don't know.
So you don't have to have those conversations anymore.
No, I still do. But I have less patience for it.
Yeah.
It's like, come for a ride with me. I'll show you. Like if you, like, do you have a VHS machine? No. Go buy one and I'll send you a couple tapes. I've been a long time with Shimano. I love the Shimano product. And Joe Lawwell, Joe Lawwell? I was dealing with him when I was kind of sponsored, right?
Yeah.
And this is when I was maybe getting some money or more Gruppos. And he told me, he's like, Japan wants to know what you do. This is like, kind of like, maybe times were tough, COVID started or something. And he's like, and I'm like, tell him to Google me. I'm a formidable mountain bike athlete. Like I go riding, you know what I mean? And I've hit everything on the shore, apart from like Vanderhook's new moves. But, like for years, it's just like, like this is what I do. I sell mountain biking, and this is the components that I use. People who know, they know, and I go to other places riding. I get recognized. Like I get recognized now more. Like every time, like shopping centers, grocery shopping, Mexico trips with my family. Like my boy will be like, "That guy's looking at you." It's like across the a couple baggage carriers over. Look at, are you Wade Simmons? Like, yeah.
What's it like for Elliot?
Oh, he's got good humor. He just laughs it off. He's like, "Oh, Dad, I think that guy recognizes you."
He's your spotter.
He's my spotter.
Your security too.
He's a funny guy. But he lives with me. Like I take him on a lot of trips, and again, back to the friend thing. Like he knows famous people too. Like he knows Vanderham and Stephen Matthews and Chris Winter, and we talk about Chris Winter trips. And he's like, it's not like he's living it. He's not like he's in the midst of it. He's in the midst of it. I'm sure like good musicians' kids are just like, oh yeah, I know. I know that guy, right?
My dad's famous. That's the way it is.
My dad's famous, yeah.
Yeah. So, and you've also started a new enterprise with Keith. That's
yeah, pretty excited. Well, Cam, I'm a bit of an entrepreneur myself. Talking about my brother, like think about what I've done over the years. As you've known, I've started this tour company called Shore Play with Mark Wood back in the day.
Yeah.
And we had a taste of like money, we did this wicked tour. We did a Triple Crown tour, and we bought a van. I actually bought this like 12 passenger van, and we filled it and made some money. But we realized that the amount of work, this is back when I was a pro rider too, and the effort that we would have to put in for the money out was going to be too much. We saw that there was potential there, but both Mark and I looked at each other like, this is going to take like full-time dedication. Are we in for this? We're like, yeah, not really. We didn't want to like jump into something that serious at that point in time, And then I partnered with Sharon Bader, Lee Lau and Sharon, who are legends on the shore, and I love maps. I'm the type of guy, like I'll go do the Lynn Loop with Lisa, on a Sunday afternoon, and I'll have to stop with the map. She's like, why are you looking at the map? I'm like, I like maps. She's like, look, that's where we were. She's like, you look at that map 50,000 times. I'm like, I know, but I'm like a deer in the headlights. I see a map, I gotta look at it. I'm like, oh.
I'm the same. I like maps too.
Like, look at the little valleys and that's a bridge. We crossed that bridge right there. It's like, yeah, you cross that bridge like 50 times a day. It's like, I know, but look at it. It's on the map. Anyways, I love maps. and loops too. So we did this, locals guide to North Shore rides, guidebook company, which was awesome.
Used to sell them.
This was pre Trail Forks.
Yeah.
So that was awesome. Like Sharon and I, for a good couple of years, we produced 2 books, like Fraser Valley and North Shore, which was awesome. MTB Trails Co., which is still a company, I believe. We'll bust it back. We're talking about doing like a coffee table book or something.
Oh, right on.
Like the best trails on the shore. Like, don't do them all, but I don't know. There's things, ideas to be had. So guidebook company was awesome. We helped populate Trail Forks with trail descriptions, which is cool. Like, what are we gonna do? Stop Trail Forks? Like, no. So when Trevor May came in and asked, like, hey, we're doing this, we're like, yeah. I mean, let's help you out. That was cool. And then a couple of years went by, and I started to rep a little bit. And I got to be honest with you, Richie, Tippy, Andreas, Leslie. At some point we're always like, we need to create a brand. We need to create a legacy. And for me, at one point, all of us were thinking about starting a bike company. Like, let's start a bike company. But it just, in retrospect, maybe we should have done it. We never did, of course, but there's always good ideas, right? And then I worked for Keith for a couple of years, and Keith and I were always, as sales guys, we're kind of like, what's next? What are we doing? Like, how can we create something? Because we always want to create your own thing. It's cool to be creative, to be a sales guy is awesome too. And we only rep great products like Race Face, born out of Rocky, BC based, Rocky Mountain, BC based. Most of our brands that we represent are core mountain biking. Like Ride Concept shoes came out of a mountain bike, pure mountain bike from day one. Marzocchi. I've been on Marzocchi for how many years? And then of course Fox bought them, which is awesome, and Fox suspension. So I'm very mountain bike centric. And then Keith and I started talking like, yeah, we wanted to bring something to the market, our own product. And then we kind of realized, like, just looking at lube offerings, like WD-40 lube or Maxima, there's no lube that really has, there's no BC or Pacific Northwest lube brand, like where we live, like and that's we're kind of like, maybe we should start a lube company, because you look at the offerings out there, like, of course there's Muck Off, but it's so, they have so many products, and they're from the UK and so big, and we're kind of like, Muck Off, like, just seem like it's overwhelming, And then of course you're like WD-40, like where does that come from? And and Finish Lines, more road biking. Maxima came from Moto. We've got Moto brands that are coming into mountain bike. And one of my sales angles is like, how come mountain bike never goes into Moto? How come mountain bikers always embrace Moto? Like Moto's the big brother, like the cooler big brother. Like, think of all the brands in mountain biking that's from Moto. Fox Head stuff, Liat, like so many. Like, I said, fuck it. Like, why is a mountain bike going to Moto? Like, like we're our own scene. Like I'm mountain bike centric. Like
Cannondale made a motorcycle.
Well, Cannondale made a motorcycle, exactly. I mean, they tried. Like the thoughts that I'm having now, they had back when they did that. But it's, doing a motorcycle it's a bigger project. So we're like, I'm a mountain biker. We're like mountain bike centrics. Like, I think we can have some traction here. Like a made in Canada product, sustainable. Born out of BC. Like BC is pretty much ground zero for mountain biking. I mean, there's good mountain biking everywhere, but Whistler, the Shore, like we have deep.
In terms of volume of good mountain biking terrain, it's tough to compete with BC.
You can't beat BC, and it's year round. So we said let's look at our options, with bike lube. So we started like vetting a couple bulk oil suppliers in Canada, because we had a checklist of where we need to be. Like, okay, like these guys exist, these guys already exist, and they're good. Where do we need to be? We want the made in Canada story. We want to be sustainable. We want a product that works well, as good or better. So it was as simple as doing a Google search, like bulk oil supplier Canada, and all these come up, and we email them, contact them, right? Customer service line, like, hey, we're a couple of mountain bikers in BC, thinking about we have an opportunity here. Guys got back to us, we started walking down the road, like, okay, this is what we need, this is what we want, Some players are really big, they wanted like, minimum was too big for us, right? Or they didn't want to get into the mountain bike space. But of course, a few were like curious, right? And we found these guys who were like, yeah, let's do it. So we collected all the competitors, the top competitors. We sent them. This is like, okay, this is where we need to be. This is the base of where Lube exists right now, and they kind of de-engineered it. They have like a laboratory. They can break it down into its components. So it's like, yeah, we can. It's bike lube. It's not like going to the moon or anything like that, right? Who we partner with they've been in the lubricant industry for 30 years. Based out of Mississauga, Ontario. They do food grade lubes. They do industrial lubes. Like stuff like that. Big player, and they're like, yeah, we can make whatever you want. No problem. And we're like, well, we want to be like sustainable, this and that. Like they do food grade lubricants too, which is like edible stuff. It has to be, safe for the environment and stuff like that. So we started going down. So this is like, we launched Godfather's Garage July 22. So this is like about 2 years prior to that. Late 2020, 2021, we started to get samples, different weights, and then with, they have a dry lube, a wet lube. Like, where do you want to be? What do we want to offer? Like, okay, like e-bikes are a thing. Back then, you got to think e-bikes were just kind of coming on board. And we're like, e-bikes are torquey. Like, they have a different requirement. Like they're torquing all the time. Like, they're eating chains, eating cassettes, right? We're like, okay, we need a heavy lube for e-bike. We live in Vancouver, like a tropical rainforest, so we're like, okay, we need a good wet lube. And then, of course, we need, we have dry summers as well, like Kamloops. We need a dry lube. So we got some, we're going through different weights, different viscosities, and we got our initial samples, and we had guys, we had guys trying it out. So Live Valley Bikes was a big supporter of testing our stuff. And then Pat Cox, who works at Rocky Mountain, he was a demo driver. So we had Pat trying this stuff on the demo bikes for a season. Like these bikes are, he was doing the demo tour dealers. It's a perfect place to test lube, like different weights and stuff. So he was like, yeah, try this, try that, Yeah, it was awesome. It just, pieces started to fall into place, and then when we were happy with each each offering, as in the dry, the wet, and the e-bike, we said, okay, this is what we'll go for this, and we put in a production run. And we did a first production, and we've done another production since. So we launched 22, and now we're kind of working on our second production as well. So things are going well.
Cool.
Yeah.
And what makes your lube different than some other lubes?
Well, there's only so many different. I mean, do you know much about lube?
Mostly what you've told me.
There's a few ways you can go. I mean, there's wax-based lube, which is like some kind of solvent, some kind of carrier that carries the wax on, and then it kind of, evaporates off and leaves the wax there. There's like a petroleum lubricant, so fossil fuels-based petroleum, and then we're actually a plant-based oil, and that's kind of the three. It's kind of the three mediums that carry. We didn't want to base in wax. Like, we're mountain bikers, and wax doesn't really work around here. Our terrain is too varied. Like you go through. We got sand, we got loam, we got creeks. Like, how many creeks do you cross when you go for your avid ride?
Yeah, tons of creeks. And the other thing about wax takes a long time to apply. It's not a 3-minute job.
Yeah. I mean, the application, we're like, we needed something that was like a daily dose, I can see wax working well maybe in like Utah terrain that doesn't have different climates.
For sure.
And you're not exposing the drivetrain to different substances. So yeah, we're like, we're out on wax. And they're like, okay, and then we want to be sustainable and stuff like that. So no petroleum. We're like, yeah, out of petroleum. And then what about Teflon? Do we want to add Teflon? Well, Teflon's not good. You know, it's a forever chemical. You know, and like things like Triflow, Teflon. I mean, we want to get away from that. Like when I was thinking about, okay, what, you know, like Wade Simmons make a lube, like, oh, here we go. Like, is this your retirement thing? You know, like we want to have a good lube because people are going to call me out on it. You know, as in like, oh, you're just like cashing out on the lube, your name, you know? So we wanted to have a product that was, you know, to start at the base level of the best that's out there, you know? And then we had to be, you know, environmental. So, you know, as I said, our supplier they're very technical. They know what they're doing. So, so no petroleum. You can basically eat the stuff. I don't know if you'd want to, you know, but there is, I don't want to say downside, but, you know, I'm an old bike mechanic. Like this is, when we were talking about the name Godfather's Garage, because we know like people are like, why'd you choose Godfather's Garage? You know, like garage, like what is that? I mean, I'm an old bike mechanic. Like that's all, that's really the only job I've ever had. You know, I've worked at Pizza Hut and Sears and sold Gore-Tex jackets, but really the job that I had for long is I've been a bike mechanic for like 12 years of my life. And I'm a pretty good bike mechanic. Like I can build awesome wheels. You know, free riding with Schley and Tippy. I was the guy that was managing the bikes because, you know, Tippy is basically useless as a bike mechanic. And Richie, he later told me that he kind of knows a few things, but he pretended not to, so I had to work on his bike. Which is kind of funny. But I'm a really good bike mechanic. Worked for years with Johnny Smoke at the Cove there in the heyday. Deep Cove Bike Shop, just churning out.
Which was it was a garage initially, wasn't it? It was like an auto shop.
An old gas station. You know, so, you know, if you want to go down the road about the names, we're like, okay, I'm known as the Godfather of Freeride, right? The Godfather. Tippy likes to think that he's the Godfather too, but you know, I'm a bit more known as the Godfather.
Can't be two Godfathers.
It can't be two Godfathers. You know, and then garage, kind of like, you know, like where does the ride start? In the garage, you know? And I love working on bikes. I love tools, you know what I mean? Like I keep my bikes running tight. If you ask people like Corey Leclerc, a good friend of mine, he runs C4 racing. I don't know if you know C4,
yep,
but he trains young kids in BC for downhill racing. He actually uses some of my old hacks on kids. You know, like Wade Simmons said this and Wade Simmons said that. And Corey gives me props because I used to live with Corey as a kid, like 1920. We'd be downtown doing trials and, you know, hitting stair gaps and stuff. And I used to carry a spoke wrench with me. And I would because I keep my wheels tight, you know, because you got to be on top of maintenance. And when you're doing gaps and case and staircases, like wheels come loose, right? So I would always I run a tight bike. If people ever know me, like I like to grab a bike and then kind of hit the front wheel on the ground. And no rattles. Like I hate like anything that rattles. And if you get to know bikes, if there's any playing any bearing, you'll feel like a little rattle. And
for sure.
Yeah. It's like I'm a good mechanic. Bottom line is I'm a pretty good mechanic. And Godfather Freeride. So Godfather's Garage, married.
I like it.
Yeah.
I like it. And now you guys have expanded into some new lines.
Yeah. We won't go there yet. And then we need a good logo. You know, like when you have a brand. When you have a brand, you need a logo. Logo is key. I'm logo based, you know. So we started thinking about some ideas, and then I got this friend of mine, Andy, who's a bit of a graphics design. He did the NSMB logo.
I know Andy. Yep.
Yeah. Did he do something for you guys too?
Nope.
No. Anyways, Andy, I started talking to Andy because I knew he was a graphics guy, and I'm like, hey, we need this logo, right? And he did an awesome job. So it's like GG with two wheels there. You know, it's like I think that you know, look at that on the back of a sock, black.
Looks cool.
It's a sick logo. Andy did an amazing job. So we got the name, we got the logo, we launched with 3 products: a dry, a wet e-bike, and a grease. You know, because we need grease. We didn't invent anything new with grease. It's just a typical 1.5 weight lithium based grease. You know. Kind of like any other grease out there, but we wanted to have an offering for a shop. And then I don't know if you noticed, but you know, a lot of companies are pretty blah with their bottles and their graphics. Like we wanted to kind of have more of a, I don't want to say like a salon look, but we wanted some style to it. You know what I mean? Like black, green, nice logo. Like
That could definitely be conditioner in there for sure.
that's a handsome looking bottle right there,
Does look good.
And and we kept it funny too, like clean it, send it, lube it, send it. In all our bottles it says lube it, send it. Which is kind of like a bit of a play on words because I used to sign posters with send it all the time. So it's like lube it, send it, clean it, send it. And I'm a bit of a sender. That's what I used to say. Send it, clean it, send it,
Send it, wash it.
And you can't deny I'm not. We have we're not pulling any wool over anyone's eyes. This stuff it's good. I guarantee it. I'm like, I sent it. Like it's it's just it's good. It's going to be awesome. We're just gaining momentum. Back to like new product. So we opened up with 4 SKUs, a grease and 3 lubes. Then we just brought this bike wash out concentrate. So like Keith and I are going, okay, what's next? We're going to expand the line. Like we're not going to be known as a lube company. Like if any dealers want to give you some space, you need to have a full offering. When you're just like a small lube, it's like how much market penetration you're going to have with just like 3 lubes and a grease, right? It's like, okay. So we're expanding our line with, kind of like a SKU a year. So, 22, 23, we brought out the bike wash, which is a concentrate. So we have a 1 liter bottle here that makes 10 liters. So, I don't want to be pompous, but this kicks the competition out of the water because the other competitors are 4 to 1. So they only make 4 liters. So this is more concentrated. It's got a little loam scent to it. And it's biodegradable. It's 100% biodegradable.
You can also use it as a perfume.
Perfume? Well, I don't know if you want.
No?
Piney perfume, but. You know where this is made?
I believe it's made in Canada.
It's made in Delta, BC. So again, back to like trying to find a bulk soap supplier. We like basically emailed a bunch of like bulk soap guys. Found this guy in Delta, and he's a mountain biker.
Oh, I knew you were going to say that.
Dude, he is this chemical engineer that makes soap for car washes and hotels. He just has this like little industrial area that he mixes up soap, and he's a mountain biker, if you believe it. He's like, I would love to work. Like, yes, like let's do it. Chemical engineer. And he's like, yeah, let's do a mountain bike soap.
Right on.
Yeah. So this is made in Delta, BC.
That's really cool.
Yeah. His name is Don. I'll introduce him to you. He's a rad dude. Yeah, and we got him. Of course, we got him a power play, because he was on, another company's bikes. So we're like, hey, if you're gonna be making soap for the Godfather, you got to be on Rocky Mountain. So we got him hooked up with some Rocky Mountains, and he's a family guy out in Delta, and he's got his ride group that they ride everywhere. And,
that's really cool.
Don, he's a really good guy. So, and get this, Don is also making our new one, degreaser.
Oh.
So we have a degreaser being mixed up right now. This bottle's look at that sample bottle there for you. So that's a bio degreaser.
Sweet.
Yeah.
So that's for next year.
Sustainable, made in Canada. This is going to be made in Delta too. So think about this, Cam. Like, if you're a bike shop here, like getting behind the story, the Shore, rider, made in Canada, sustainable. It's a good story. Like we're really excited about it. It's awesome.
Are you into any other markets yet?
Yeah, we are. We have a couple reps in Canada. We started, from day one. We had Ruben in Alberta, Andrew Lefevre in Ontario. So Ontario, Alberta, two big markets. They're Rocky reps as well. Buddies of ours, like, hey, let's get behind this. We're like, yeah, let's do this. New dealers. It's been hard. It's been challenging because people, big distributors, it's just adding to the cart, right? It's easy, right? They're like, I need some brake pads and a couple rotors and some bike lube. So, we thought it would be maybe easier than what it is to break in, just because bike shop dealers don't have time to like go to one single site and order stuff. They need to go to the Costco and get everything at once, And we're doing it privately in Canada, so we're going to associate with a big distributor of bicycle stuff. So it's been more, feet on the ground, knock on the doors, like, hey, here's the story. And I like to tell this part is that no one was waiting for Wade Simmons to make lube, right? It wasn't like, oh, finally, like Wade Simmons made bike lube. But, it's kind of like it's like toothpaste, Colgate, Crest, like it's goddamn bike lube. At the end of the day, it's like it's not revolutionary, but it's got a story, which is awesome. And you just gotta win people over, right? Because they've been using brand X for so long. You're like, well, I've been on this brand. And you're like, well, you just try this. And, so we did a lot of sampling and out, and we have our shops behind us, we're big in Kamloops too at the district because, we wanted Kamloops. I grew up in Kamloops, but we wanted Kamloops, to use our dry lube. And, it's like, they love it. It's working good. So it's been hand to mouth kind of the first couple of years, as every business is. But, like when you start peeling back the pages and stuff, we deliver, and we're in for the long haul. It's not like we're in and out. We're not going to just grow this. And, like I want to have a good offering. Like here, check this out. This is our latest and greatest tubeless tire plugs. You can kind of see where we're going, right?
Yeah.
Godfather's Garage. So that is
some bacon strips.
Bacon strips in there, 2 different sizes. Of course, to be competitive, like that's more bacon strips than any other competitor offers. It's going to come in that neat little tin. Look how rad that tin is.
That's great.
That's pretty cool. This is where Godfathers wants to be. We want to do quality stuff. I look around your garage here, like you see that old little pull-out chest thing, like patina. Like that's rad.
That's my grandfather's.
Dude, exactly. I want that to be handed down, right? I want that to sit on an old bench like that and like get scratched and dented. Like look how rad that is.
That's great.
No, I know. So that's where we live. We don't want to be like turn and burn. I gave you a spray bottle with this, an aluminum spray bottle.
Yep.
So we have our bike wash. We sell a spray bottle for it to use, a foamy spray bottle, which is aluminum, recyclable and stuff like that. No more plastic. We want to get away from. You can't really get away from like the bottles for wash. They can't be metal or anything, but but the reusable.
Yeah, that's great.
Yeah,
I mean, you're not going to lose it either.
A couple like when we were talking about where we want to be in the industry, like to me, a couple companies stand out, like Brooks. You see Brooks saddles and stuff, kind of like that old roll leather, steel. That's where we want to go. We want to make quality stuff. My dad, my dad's an old cowboy. Like he's into guns and cowboy stuff. And cowboys, it's all about leather, things that last a long time, right? Ropes and like that's where we want to live. Is like we want to have a cool style garage. You think about old garages, gas stations that have the old tools and stuff like that. Yeah, it's really exciting. It's so fun.
I really think you should do a cologne.
A cologne? I don't want to wear a cologne.
No, it smells like a garage though. It smells like a garage with a wood floor.
Old beer and motor oil and stuff.
Exactly.
Come out with a scent.
And a bit of loam. You could put a little bit of loam in there and maybe some pine.
I do like 2-stroke smoke.
Perfect. 2-stroke. That's pretty good. That's a pretty good name for a cologne.
Yeah. 2-stroke smoke. A cologne.
So one of the things we were going to talk about in the beginning was the state of Freeride.
Oh.
And I assume you have some thoughts about that.
The state of Freeride. Well, I would say that Freeride is alive right now with all the teams coming out and stuff like that. Like freeriding is hot. It's always been hot in my world. I mean, but like, what do you want me to say here, Cam?
I don't know. I thought it was what you had opinions about it. I mean, you've got opinions about a lot of things.
We did discuss it about everyone's just doing the same thing.
So that was your thesis about it, was just that it's there's maybe not as much originality as there was.
Well, that Freeride is cool when the hardline comes up. Remember the hardline in the UK? How long? It's been 5 years, 6 years now.
I'm not sure how long. Quite a while though, for sure.
So you got the DH racers that are kind of aging out, but they still want to add something to it. The Athertons, right? And then G doing his big stuff. Like G is great. I love that guy. I've only met him a few times in my life, but that one line they did at Red Bull. Remember that one step down to wall landing like that? That's the shit that I love. You know? And G will always burn a place. He'll always have a place in my memory. Is like, dude, he's like, that's new, right?
Wasn't it someone else's line first?
Was it someone else's first? No, I think he built it. Someone else hit it though. They landed it.
Oh, this is terrible that we can't remember. Kelowna guy.
Romaniacs.
Yeah. I think it was his line first.
Oh, was it? It might be. I might have that wrong.
Romo, yeah.
I believe. Yeah, I believe. I mean, Steve was legendary too. You know.
Yeah.
But that line is cool.
Yeah. Super cool.
That's what moves me is like
definitely
shit like that. You know. And then you see them do the hard line. So they're marrying DH racing with freeride, which is cool. I mean, as a freerider to the core, I love that. Like I'm like, oh yeah, the hard line. That shit's cool. You know,
gnarly
like
DH.
The fact that they time it, you know, I mean, take it or leave it, right? You know.
It would be a terrible judged event, though.
No, I know, but so they're kind of like they're just doing big jumps and stunts and racing down it, right? It's kind of yeah.
And Jackson won it last year.
I know, it's awesome.
It's like,
Dude, he's such a ripper. It's so
oh my god.
Oh,
Did you know that he was going to be a racer?
No.
I always thought he was going to be a free rider.
yeah.
Because he's always doing like tricks and stunts.
Cam,
and
you know that you have to validate yourself in racing because the race, like me growing up as a free rider, like I raced BMX. I don't know if you knew this.
Yeah, I
I went
definitely
to
knew
the
that.
Worlds in '85 for Canada for BMX. I'm raced out. I spent my whole life racing BMX, and at a young age, I was just like, I realized that racing is funny because you got to be hungry. Like I'm not a pack filler. For people who go out, like they see it as an event, like, oh, I'm going to go do the race. It's like, I'm only going to race if I'm going to be a contender, right? Like I'm a terrible racer because I'm too competitive. So I can't put myself in that because it's like, if I'm paying money to go race, I'm going to fucking race. It's like, you know, I don't want to be a pack filler. Like I'm not a pack filler. I can't say that any more clearly. So when I was growing up and I would be an Oakley athlete, hanging out with like Cedric Gracia and Brian Lopes, right? You know, here I am, this free rider, hanging out with these guys. Think about the shit that I used to like, you know, like they would like tear strips off me, just like hanging out with them on these photo shoots. But they realized that I could ride because racing is like, it's a proving ground, right? If you're a fast racer, you're a fast racer. That's where you live. You're proven. You're like, oh, I can crack the top 10. Free riding doesn't have that. They don't have a proving ground. It's like, oh, he did a drop. Like maybe he got lucky and landed it, right? That's why I always used to try to hit drops a couple times. Like the Moreno Valley Gap, you know, like the one, you know, probably the most iconic line I ever did. I did it twice. Did it once without the truck and then once with the truck, you know, and that's kind of like, it's like had it on lockdown.
Didn't Bender do it twice too? But he crashed once and he landed once.
Twice, yeah. He didn't land it.
I thought he landed it once because you told him to land on his front wheel or something.
No, he never landed it.
I thought he did.
No, he went back and broke his handlebar.
Oh shit!
So he was there with me on the film shoot, and he crashed, concussed himself. He went back separately, landed, handlebar broke. Oh, I know, poor guy.
Poor Bender. Yeah,
poor Bender. You know, so anyways, I used to hang out with like Lopes and Gracia there, and they were like I think they kind of realized that, well, like free riders might have a bit of like.
Oh, at first they were sort of dismissive of you.
Yeah, totally, 100%.
Huh.
You know, racers like to go fast. You know, that's their idea. When you're racing, it's all about speed. Where me, I'm like, I could give a shit about getting down the hill the fastest, right? You know, I'm a line guy. I like
have the most fun.
Have the most fun. Yeah. Well, yeah, it's not even about like, I don't know if it's fun. It's my own personal challenge to do things. Like, oh, I could hit that gap, or I could tag that tree, or holy shit, I could like air up to that rock and down, you know? I always like to look at things differently. I'm not into it to beat, you know, when you think of racing is egotistical when you think about it, because you're there to win and you want to be the best.
You want to beat everyone else, yeah.
You want to beat everyone else. Where free riding is not like that. It's a personal challenge, right? That's what's cool about free riding is
that's why free riders get along better than racers do.
Yeah, maybe. I think so.
Because even at Rampage, which is obviously a competition,
Yeah.
Everyone pretty much gets along.
Everyone gets along. They're all, because it's a bit survival.
Yeah.
Not to say that DH racing is not survival. I mean, it's the gnarliest out there. But there's that level of like, it's like, I'm going to beat you. And you want to beat people. It's like racing, I'm more about the experience. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, totally. But I mean, that's fun for you, isn't it?
Oh, 100% fun.
Yeah. Because you were just saying that, I don't know if it's fun, but the challenge, you get gratification when you figure something out, and
you get
you're able to do it.
gratification when you put it together and it works out well. And when you learn that, and kind of like when you accept that challenge rather than just beating people, there's always got to be a loser in a race,
Yeah. I want to finish up and not take up too much of your time, but I want to end on something that I've noticed about you before, but having been on a ride with you recently, I noticed it a lot. Do you think, what is your level of enjoyment in mountain biking now compared to other times in your life?
I've reached a space, Cam, where I'm like, I hate, again, like I said, I hate doing things over again. I get bored easy. So to do the repetition, I like things new, and I find it challenging now, mountain biking, because that's why I love the e-bike. I'm going to throw it out there right now, is that the e-bike breathed new life into mountain biking for me. Because I've ridden the shore since, mid-90s. I moved down here in 91, and that's how I met the people riding the shore. There was no maps back then. You just ride the shore and you bump into people. You're like, hey, here's my phone number. No cell phones. And then, things evolve, and I like a challenge. Like I'm a technar. We love the technar. Us, like janky tech trails. We spent so long trying to just make those smooth. I like the flow and fun, but really, the tech is where I live. And then the introduction of the e-bike just allows me to explore more. Back to like, I'm an explorer. I like to do new things different. So on the pedal bike, you kind of like, you're a bit limited unless you have a whole day. If I had every day for 6 hours to go riding, I'm sure I would like a pedal bike more than an e-bike. But just the fact that I have 2 kids now and a working wife and launching a brand and working, it's the e-bike gives me the ride that I want to ride in an hour and a half. I have an hour and a half. My wife is like at home. It's 3:30. I can go do a quick lap before dinner, right? It's like I look at my pedal bike and I look at my e-bike and I'm like, I can go anywhere on this bike, or I can do the same hour and a half lap that I've been doing for 15 years on this bike. It's like, what do you think I'm going to choose? I'm going to choose the e-bike. I'm going to go ride over to Seymour from Lynn Valley. You know what I mean?
Find different routes to get there. And I'm, as a free rider, I don't ride an e-bike to make it easier. I ride an e-bike to make it harder. That's what people don't understand about e-bikes, is that they're like, oh, I'm not there yet with e-bike. I'm like, what do you mean? The fitness. It's like, no, it's like, it is totally different than what you expect. Like it is, you've been on our rides. Like we cry, we session things. We're like riding each other into the ground. But it's like, it's like with more megs or more gigs. Everyone like computers or microphones or anything that we want. Our GoPros now that have like, or 4K, 6K, 27K TVs, whatever. It's like, that's where it's going, like it's, I just love it how people don't like e-bikes on one side of things, yet they're forward technology on everything else in their life. That's interesting for sure. Yeah, there's certainly lots of purists, and I was certainly one of them when I was earlier to mountain biking, and I think I was not an early adopter for anything, suspension or brakes or anything. I was resistant to everything, but when I became part of the mountain bike media, I had to try new things, and that's made me love new stuff.
That's awesome.
And put me back on the front foot in terms of I'm not a retro grouch anymore.
Well, I still like retro stuff. Like, like there's no, there's no black and white. That's what people don't get. It's like either e-bike or not. It's like I still love my pedal bike, right? And I ride with my son a lot on my pedal bike because I like to see in his eyes now, you know, and him experiencing that. And I love epics, you know. I love going to Chilcotins. I love going to Manning Park. Like if I had all day for an 8-hour epic, that's what I love, you know. Like a bit of Chilcotin, pedal bike, but you have time.
Yeah. For sure.
You know, it all comes down. It's not as simple as black and white. Like, you know, e-bikes or not e-bikes. It's like it's all good. If you're in the woods and you're riding a mountain bike, it doesn't matter. It's just
having fun.
It's fun. We sell mountain biking. How awesome is that?
Totally. Well, thank you very much for your time, Wade. I appreciate talking to you. And you were the very first interview I ever did working in mountain bike media.
Yeah.
Like in the Café du Soleil.
The part 1, part 2?
In year 2000?
I pull those stories up because I pull images sometimes from those.
Oh, right on. That's cool.
Yeah.
So thank you very much. And it's been cool getting to know you over the years as well.
Yeah, Cam. I mean, I appreciate it. Thank you for the time. You know, pushing the brand, and I'm happy to see you being successful. You know, NorthshoreMountainBiking.com. It's awesome. Still at it. We're at it. Look at us.
Whew, crazy.
Killing it.
24 years.
We should go for a bike ride.
Okay, let's do it.
Okay.
Thanks, man.
buddy.